My name is Jeff, and I'm going to be showing you an experiment that I did using Unity. A few months back, I started learning Unity and I found it to be a really cool tool, so I decided to put together a series of experiments. This first one is about Conway's Game of Life in 3D, which is going to be basically a mathematical simulation, a visualization project, and I'll be using VR to actually show it. So first I'm going to talk about what Unity is, what Conway's Game of Life is, and then I'll show a demonstration of my working prototype, and finally I'll talk about some challenges and some implementation details. All right, so what is Conway's Game of Life? Well, it's a computer simulation that was developed by John Horton Conway in 1970, and it consists of several cells. Each has a state, typically on, off, 0, 1, although you can have more states. So the simulation begins with the cells in a predefined state, and at each unit of time, we can call a frame, the cells will change their state based on a predefined set of rules. Now typically, except for the initial state, the user doesn't provide any input, so the system will just continue to evolve by itself. You just sit there and watch it, or you can pause it or speed it up, but you just sit and watch it. And these types of simulations are typically called cellular automata. Now, if the rules and the initial state are set just right, the result can be really interesting and quite unpredictable, so it's pretty fun to watch. Typically, Conway's Game of Life is run on 2D, on a 2D grid, but it can be expanded to other dimensions, either 1 or even 3 dimensions. Now, for those of you interested in math, theoretically, Conway's Game of Life is said to be the power of a universal Turing machine. So a little more details on Conway's Game of Life. Conceptually, it's designed to simulate the birth, reproduction, death cycle of organisms, life forms. The state of each cell is based on how many neighbors it has, and neighbors means cells that are adjacent to it that have the on state, which is basically live state, whereas the off state is the dead state. So you see on the bottom right in this diagram, we have a bunch of cells. These 3 are in the live state. This purple one is the one we want to understand what's going to happen to it. So we can see if we look at all the cells around it in this 3x3 grid, it has 3 neighbors. And if we look at the rules here, we can determine what's going to happen to it. So the rules are relatively straightforward. They can be boiled down to these 4 rules. If you have 1 or fewer neighbors, you die, which represents underpopulation. If you have 2 or 3 neighbors, you survive, which means you just stay where you are, nothing happens. If you have more than 3 neighbors, you die, simulating overpopulation. And if you have 3 neighbors and you're not alive, you become live, which basically represents reproduction. So in this case, we go from frame 1, the initial state, to frame 2. We can see that this cell here was off, was dead, and because it has 3 neighbors, looking at the rule here, the last rule, it becomes live here. So now we have 4 live states. And the other cells, by the way, all have 2 neighbors, so under this rule, they survive. So here's a more complicated example, a pretty famous one. I believe this is called a glider, where we have sort of a gun, like a weapon. It's shooting these projectiles to the bottom right that it's creating, and this will just go on forever. And it's almost like a program. So it's pretty interesting that things that are this complex can be generated from a simple rule set. So what is Unity? I'm guessing many of you watching this video know what it is, but just in case, Unity is a cross-platform game engine made by Unity Technologies. Around 2005, I think, is when it was made. And it consists of a UI interface plus code. So in the UI interface, you can add objects, create them, manipulate them, do animations, texturing, that kind of thing, lighting. And then if you want to get into detailed behaviors, you typically need to write code that's in either C# or JavaScript. I chose C# for this project, which I prefer as a language. And it supports a variety of target platforms, Windows, Mac, both 2D and 3D games, also mobile devices, Android, iOS, and it also supports virtual reality, for example, the Oculus Quest and other devices, and augmented reality. And finally, Unity is free with restrictions. For example, if you're a hobbyist and you're not part of a big company, you can just use Unity free without having to worry about purchasing a license or anything. You just get a free license as a hobbyist, as an individual. So if we take Conway's Game of Life, Unity, and VR, put them together, what do we get? Well, now I'm going to show a video of my working prototype, and then we'll talk about some details at the end.
I just put on my VR headset, which happens to be an Oculus Quest 2, and now I'm in a virtual world. You can see it's a pretty simple virtual world with a surface below me and some text here. And finally, we have this mysterious looking red cube. If we zoom into this, we'll see this cube is made up of a series of smaller cubes, which are the cells in this Game of Life simulation. You can actually use this little 3D cursor that I can move freely in 3 space in order to delete and remove cubes in any way we want. thereby changing the initial conditions for this simulation. So I'm going to add these cubes here and change this to a 2x4 configuration. Now I'm going to back up. I'm going to start the simulation. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a few moments, but in order to get good performance during the simulation, I pre-calculate all of the state data and also pre-create the objects. So that's what it's doing now. For these few seconds, the CPU is a little bit slow as it pre-calculates. Now, if we look over, we see it's already done. 50 out of 50. 50 is just an arbitrary frame limit I've set for this demo. We could do much more. It'll just take longer to pre-calculate. And of course, eventually we'll run out of memory. And by the way, I'm using the Oculus Quest 2 standalone without a cable to my PC. So it has potentially less memory than many desktop machines. So I have to be careful with the memory and also the CPU. Now, if we zoom in here, we see it's a 2x4 cube. And I'm going to go ahead and start the simulation. And when we start the simulation, we'll see it's starting to evolve already to a bunch of interesting shapes based on the initial conditions. So I'm going to pause it here. We see we're at frame 13 and already has almost 200 objects. So I'll start it up again. And once we get here, you see the colors are changing. Now the coloring is based on the distance of each of these cells from the center of this area, which is a 100 by 100 by 100, basically big giant cube here. And you can see the ones in the middle are kind of a dark red. As you get farther out, brighter red, and then eventually it turns to a very dark green, and then to a lighter green, and eventually it'll change to a blue and a gray, which we'll see just in a moment. So if I continue the simulation again, we'll see here already up to about 2,000 objects. Pause it here. This is a pretty interesting series of shapes. It's getting pretty complicated. We'll go a little bit further, about 3,000. All right, pause it here. This is our limit of about 5,000 objects. So it's getting pretty complicated. So what we can actually do is, if we want to see what the configuration is inside, we can actually step inside. I've shut off the collision here, so I can actually go right inside this and look around. I could even squat down to get a different view. Then I can just kind of zoom out. Now, by the way, you can see there's a limit of 5,000 objects, which is a limit I've set again for performance and memory reasons. And you may wonder, how does that affect the shape? Well, if we look around here, you can see it's actually kind of cut here, basically like a cross section. And the reason is it's starting to generate here on the right side. And when it gets to around here, it runs out of objects. It can't make any more than 5,000. And therefore, it kind of looks like a cross section here. That's the reason for that. But we can kind of get a different point of view and start this demo up again. And eventually it's going to hit 50 and it's going to start over from scratch. And now we can look at it from a different point of view. And the cool thing is we can change the initial conditions and rerun this demo as many times as we want. And that'll really show a different result every single time. And it's pretty interesting to see what all the different possibilities are and to experiment with that.
So, what are some challenges I faced in this project? First of all, it's a little tricky to display the cells in a pleasing and informative way. As I showed you in the demo, I decided on a coloring scheme that's based on the distance from the center of the game area. It's basically a big 100 by 100 by 100 cube, which is the game area. So in the center of that, there's basically a spot which isn't visible, but it represents the center, and all the cubes are compared against that. So if they're close, in the demo you saw they're one color. If they're farther, they change colors. And this basically really helps the visualization and allows a better grasp of the shapes as they evolve in real time. Also, using the 3D cursor to modify the initial state was a little tricky to create that cursor. First thing I did is I used one of the controllers to shoot a ray and then move a cube that's half transparent to a certain location, a certain distance away from that controller's location in the game. And that works pretty well, but the problem there is you can't really move very far forward and backwards. So I used the buttons on the other controller to change the distance so I can basically go to any arbitrary point in 3D space. So for more challenges, performance, I definitely spent a lot of time trying to get the frame rate up, get it smoother, get rid of the jittering and stuff. And I went through a series of several stages performance tweaking. So first of all, I tried calculating the state of the next frame and drawing each time, which basically means I'm going to, on each frame, I'm going to do all the calculations, create all the objects. Of course, that was way too slow. There's a lot of work involved there to do that, especially because I have a pretty big play area. And for the next step, I tried pre-calculating all the frames at the beginning, and then I just created the objects in the middle of the simulation. But the problem with that is there's still some time due to the object creation. So finally, I decided to try pre-calculating the frames and pre-create the objects at the beginning of the simulation before I actually start it. And then what I'm doing is I'm only going to be hiding and showing the objects that are relevant to that frame. So it's very minimal. Now, of course, there is some performance involved in actually rendering the objects, but that's basically what we're focusing on. All the other stuff that can be done ahead of time is done ahead of time. And this gives, as you expect, a much better usable performance, which is what I showed in the prototype video. And I also tweaked the anti-aliasing to give another boost in performance. And finally, I tried different shaders to further improve their performance. I originally had a shader with an outline, which looks really cool, but it took a lot of extra CPU time. So I ended up switching to a simpler shader, and that gave a noticeable performance improvement. So finally, for future work, there's definitely a lot of things I'd like to do for this project if I get time. For example, I'd like to do even more time on the performance angle. And for example, if I merge the objects, I may be able to improve the performance significantly. And I started doing that, but I realized it's a pretty big effort, so maybe I'll come back to it. But if I do that, I can probably improve the CPU usage significantly and maybe even make the game space larger. I have a typo here. This should be 100 by 100 by 100 because it's in 3D space. But if I could do that, that would be really cool because then I can actually make it fill the entire area of what you see. Because right now in the demo, right, it's just a small area. And also, it would be nice to be able to modify the game, the state as the simulation is running. Of course, that will take some additional logic because that means we can't pre-calculate everything. But that would be really cool. Another thing I could do is release the source code, make it open source, and maybe just share the APK with others so they can just test it out. Or if I open sourced it, people could modify it, kind of play with it, experiment with it. Because some of the things, like the rules, are hard-coded now. You can't change those inside the app. You have to actually modify the code. And if you're interested in the source code or the APK, let me know and I'll consider that. Or I could just publish it on App Labs, and that would make it even easier for people to just quickly use the app without having to do too much side loading, which is required with the APK file. And finally, I just did real basic experimentation with the rules and the initial state, which is really the most fun part about this. I'd like to get back to that and try some more rules, try some more initial states, and see if I can get some cool things going on there, some unpredictable results, and experiment that, look at it from a bunch of different angles. All right, well, thanks for watching. You can find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions, or you can also put comments in this video. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have, or if you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. I learned a lot about Unity, and I didn't talk too much about it, but maybe I'll make another video about some of the things I learned about how to use Unity, how to program in Unity. That might be another potential future video. Okay, thanks for watching.